Well, thank you so much. Welcome to the First Friday e-call. With K-State Research and Extension, the purpose of the First Friday e-call is to nurture small businesses and inspire entrepreneurship across the state. We encourage partner sharing after our speaker, after Becky speaks. And so if you haven't already thought about it, think about what you'd like to share with the audience that's both live and the ones that are going to watch this recording. As noted in the chat, this will be recorded for your review afterwards. And if you're on my mailing list, why, you will get a notice when this call is up online. I'm not going to waste any more time. Becky McCray is here with us. She is one of the co-founders of SaveYour.town, and Becky's going to talk with us today about rebuilding with resilience. And Becky will tell us about how she's going to do audience interaction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm excited to be here again and talk with y'all. And because it's the Kansas call, I can say y'all and you guys won't make fun of me, but I am excited to be here and to talk about rebuilding with resilience. I wish we didn't have to talk about this, but it's something that is on all of our minds right now. I would love to have all of your stories and your ideas, as well as your questions. So if I trigger a thought in your mind and you go, oh, that reminds me of, feel free to put that right into the chat box. Nancy's going to watch those. We will stop a couple of times during the talk and take some questions then. And then at the end, we'll do questions and answers until either I get all your questions answered or Nancy tells me to shut up and sit down. So that's what we'll do. So if you're ready, we will jump right in, because we know that right now, all the small towns, including the ones that you serve directly, are facing this challenge of rebuilding the local economy. And unfortunately, most of the advice that we're seeing coming out on this is meant for big cities and their big business districts and, you know, the large employers. Well, that just doesn't match our small town reality. So that's why everything that I tell you today is going to be designed specifically for small rural communities and not big global cities. Now, most of us have lived through oil busts and ag market crashes and all kinds of things that have hurt our local economies. But the current crisis is different for at least a couple of reasons from anything that we've ever faced before, because we've lost a lot of jobs and local businesses, which maybe we've dealt with before, and remaining businesses not all in great shape, which, you know, maybe we've got some experience with that. But the real thing is, it's not just locally, and it's not just our neighbors, but it's the whole country, and in fact, the whole world right now. And that means some of the things that we've relied on before aren't going to work this time. So we know that no one is going to save our towns for us. The governments at all levels are struggling with their budgets. Organizations are absolutely overwhelmed with need. And those resource lists that we've all been looking at, those resources are overwhelmed with demand and a lot of competition for these very scarce resources. So small business resources especially are very hard to access without help. And it may not be enough to save a business that is already in trouble. So we can't depend on help from the outside. So we're going to focus today on what you can do with what you already have locally. Now, this crisis has really made it clear how vulnerable our local economies really are. We don't know the future, and we don't know how many waves of trouble are going to pound on our businesses. Even as we're seeing cases rise faster now than we did in March, when this first started to be a real local issue, it's really not clear what's coming next. What I'm seeing in my part of Oklahoma, and I'm just 14 miles from the Kansas border from Barber County, I'm seeing a lot of people, most of the people acting like everything is fine. And so they're happy to shop and go to restaurants and go to bars and everything else. And then other people are a lot more cautious and are not getting out and spending money in the local restaurants or the local shops. So are we going to end up facing more forced closures as our case rates rise? Are we going to end up with more people choosing to stay home again? And we just don't know. We just don't know. We cannot predict not only what's going to happen with this, we can't predict what the next problem will be after this crisis. But we do know for sure. We know there will be a next problem. our local economies will always face problems. So I'm going to share some suggestions that will make your local economy less vulnerable to those shocks, whatever they might be, and not just right now, but into the future. So here's how you're going to help your communities address these unknowns. You're going to build a more resilient local economy by being idea friendly. Now, the idea friendly method is our method at Savior.town that we use to help you and to your communities to be more open to new ideas. Now, that matters because Iowa State University studied 99 small towns over a 20-year time period. And the researchers concluded that the communities that survived the best, no matter what happened to them, were the ones that were open to new ideas. And that kind of makes sense because if you are open to new ideas, you can deal with new challenges. So how does being idea friendly make your local economy more resilient? First, an idea friendly local economy is more resilient because it supports participation in the economy by many people, not just the few. And that part of the idea friendly method is gather your crowd. And then an idea friendly local economy is more resilient because it is interconnected. And that part is build connections. And then finally, an idea friendly local economy is more resilient because it supports lots of small tests rather than making a few big high risk bets. And that part is take small steps. So that sounds great, but what would that look like? So I'm going to walk you through that now, and I'm going to share short-term actions that will help your community survive right now in this current crisis, as well as some longer-term actions that will make your economy more resilient no matter what the future brings. So first up, an idea-friendly local economy is more resilient because it supports the participation in the economy by many people, not just a few. And this is the gather your crowd part. And I want to start this section with a practical idea that any community could use right now and that almost no community is doing really well right now. And it is one that will make a real difference. I want you to, and so if you're writing down ideas, here's the first one, start a combined community-wide email list to promote all your businesses. Now, this idea taps into that collective community desire to support local businesses right now. Now, you might already have a list, right, an email list, whether it's in your organization or the chamber or somewhere else, but we're going to start there, but we really need to expand it dramatically. So we're going to start by ask other businesses to send an email to their list, even if they've never emailed their customers before, and invite them to join that new combined community list, wherever it is that they can sign up. Your goal is a big new community-wide combined list that reaches as many people as possible. And you're going to send that first email to that whole list that explains this community-wide idea, that what you're trying to do is rally everyone in the community to support local businesses and to keep up to date with what's going on. And then encourage everyone to spread it around and promote it on all your social channels and ask businesses and friends to promote it too. So you're going to reach out to your local stores and collect information from every business that you can right now about their current status, what's available right now, and get photos and videos to share if you can. And you want to include all the businesses in town and nearby in the country, and forget whether they're members or not. Sometimes, especially chambers of commerce are like, oh, well, they're not a member, we can't promote them. Forget that. This is not the time for that. This is the time to promote everyone. And in fact, include your home-based businesses. Include pop-up temporary businesses, even if they're not going to be there forever. Include your service businesses. Include any trucks or trailers that are going to make a temporary stop in your town. Anything that's open and serves your customers, you want to talk about it on this email list. So the big thing that's changing a lot right now is what's going on with local businesses. People are having a hard time keeping up with who's doing curbside pickup, who's doing delivery, who's got limited in-store shopping, who's doing phone orders only or online only, or who, you know, everything's wide open right now, but we know we may end up going back to some of those closures. Now's the time to build this list that's an asset that you can turn to no matter what's changing. And one other trick you can do with this list is you can allow the different stores to take turns writing updates for the list. So a different store could write an email each week, and then you could have an email every week without any one person being responsible for writing all of the emails. So it can be announcements of when they're open or what's changed in their product line or if anything's different in their business. And it's a little less intimidating for people that have never done email marketing before, maybe never mailed their list before. And so you're kind of training your businesses to be better at marketing at the same time that you're tapping into that community spirit. And then it's easier to coach everyone on the list, that's all your businesses that are participating, coach them as a group to be more effective and to do a better job of actually reaching customers. Now, as a bonus, you can also use this list, promote people to sign up who went to school in your town, people that are your alumni but have moved away, people that are seasonal residents or they always come around in fall to hunt, or people that love your community for whatever reason, but they don't really live in town. But they could be a source of added support. They might buy online from your businesses because they love your town. So see, you're building this lasting asset. It gathers your crowd by attracting people to you. And then as unexpected things happen or things change, then you've got a terrific way to get the word out and rally people to support the local economy, not just right now and into the few coming months, but years and years from now. What you're building is that lasting asset. Okay, so that's the first idea. Now we're going to look at how do we provide some kind of short-term support for people who have lost their jobs, because there's a lot of this. And I think that in our rural communities, small-scale self-employment is the best bridge, temporary bridge, to get people back across this current economic crisis. And until jobs start coming back, people are pretty much on their own for creating income. So using the innovative rural business models, which is something we talk about a lot, you can search innovative rural business models and you'll find articles and videos where we've talked about it. They help you pull down the barriers to entry so that more people can create even the tiniest of businesses and even the tiniest of incomes for themselves right now. And then the most successful of these people, they're going to go on to become your next round of employers in your town, creating new jobs. Now, long-term, what I'm hearing is that more community economic development plans that are looking at the long-term development of communities are starting to include things like economic equity and mobility, which is really just another way of saying opportunity for all the people in your community. Because for too long, economic development plans have kind of focused only on like the top tier of employers and businesses. And now we're seeing them focus more on opportunity for everyone in the community. So let's look at some ways that that can work in rural communities, especially. The best one that I know of, alternative ownership models. These actually spread the equity in the business to many people by spreading the ownership to many people. And that can include cooperatives and community ownership and employee ownership and crowdfunding and crowd ownership, which are separate things, right? There's the get money from the crowd, but then also let the crowd invest. So you'll find plenty of information about these kind of things online. There's also, of course, extension experts who are available to help you with this, I'm sure nationally. And in the slides that Nancy is going to post for download, they're not really slides. Obviously, I'm not showing any slides, but they do have these links in them. And so I've put links to 2 recent articles from experts that will help you apply cooperatives and crowdfunding to the current crisis. So these are 2 articles that I really recommend. And you'll find those in the download that Nancy's going to post afterwards. Now, alternative ownership like this is also a tool for both short-term and long-term. Now, short-term, it can possibly help save a business that is on the verge of closing, or maybe even bring back a business that is already closed. The grocery store in Alva, Oklahoma, here in Woods County, Oklahoma, it closed when the last chain store, the last chain organization pulled out their support and said they would no longer support a store here. And it took more than a year, but our local manager rallied community investment and reopened that store. And it has been successful for over 10 years now. So that's a real testament that community investing can replace that outside source. Now, I know that Kansas has lots of community ownership experiments, especially around groceries, but it could work for nearly any kind of business. So start thinking about how community ownership could save almost any business in your community. And then long-term, look to increase the use of these tools through all of your local businesses. We're not making nearly enough use of community and employee ownership. Businesses that are owned by their employees or owned by the community are a lot less likely to pull up their stakes and move out when times are good or times are bad. So right here, we're going to pause for questions. So Nancy, I'm going to let you read off questions for me if you have some ready. I caught her muted. She's working on it. Hold on. Did we have any questions, Nancy? You're muted, so I don't know if you're saying anything.
No, we don't have any questions yet.
No questions? Oh, come on. Okay. I'm going to take a little sip of water and let y'all think for just a second to see if you have some questions that are coming up.
That concept of community ownership and community investment makes a lot of sense to me, that people are shy to explain what they need, but there are people who, they don't have the courage that you have to go into business, but they have money and they want to support your dream. So
absolutely. And I think so often we'll see a business that has maybe 10 or 15 employees in a small town, and the owner wants to retire. And that's it, right? They can't find somebody to buy it because they're in a small town. Mm-hmm. And so the business closes. And that is a huge tragedy for that community. Right. Whereas if we could figure out a way to do the employee ownership there, then those 10 or 15 employees, as the owners of the business, could maintain it. And we wouldn't lose it just because the owner was retiring. So, all right. Okay. Nothing popped up in chat?
Nothing popped up yet.
Y'all are quiet. I can see that at Lisa's house, there's a conversation going on, which I think is awesome. That's good, because I'm hoping you're talking about business, right? Like,
yeah, we're talking about the email list.
Cool. That is, I'm telling you, that is
because we don't have any, we don't have any newsletters. There's hardly a way to communicate at all. And we go into intergenerational, where some people use Facebook, certain people use email, and it's either one or nothing. I mean, it's really hard.
Right. And so when you write that email, then you can always send it by email and then copy paste right over onto Facebook. And you can take a screenshot of it and go to Instagram with it, right? Like we can make this work. We can reach more channels. You can shoot a video update and put that on the Snapchat, or have, one of the people that's big on Snapchat already in your community has a large group of followers. My sister has a huge group of followers because she does personal training, and she does little training videos on Snapchat. And so she would be a great person that you would like send her the update and go, Connie, read some of these things on your Snapchat and send it to your people. So you can tap people's existing networks that way and spread it out. You don't have to rely just on one channel. So that's cool. Good deal. I'm glad you
Well, and the other thing is, just like you say, start small and get incremental, because one of the questions I worried about is whether people would get overwhelmed with these emails and get so inundated, but you would address that when it happens.
One a week. Start with one a week. When people start going, then you can scale back.
Them from replying all, right?
Oh, but that's why you use an email service. There are free ones like MailChimp, where you can
mean like MailChimp, a one-way thing. Okay, that's helpful.
Not a round robin. Let's email.
Oh,
everybody.
That's what I was.
Invite people to sign up for an actual formal list through MailChimp or one of the other services that doesn't charge you anything to get started. Until you have 2,000 people on your email list, MailChimp doesn't cost anything. So it's a good source to keep those email addresses in there. People can sign up or leave and do that themselves. Like, you don't have to maintain the list for them. And then you get a free sign up page, and you can send everybody that link and go sign up for the thing. And then they can come and sign up. People that have an email list can email it to their customers. You can put signs up everywhere that say, go to this address to sign up, and people can sign up. And you can promote it all over that way. You definitely don't want it to just be an open email list where you like do carbon copy to everybody.
Oh, that was what I was picturing. I'm glad
let's not do that. Okay, so I'll make a note that I need to be sure to say that when I share that idea. But thank you very much for mentioning that, so that we can clear that up. Okay, we're going to go on from here to the second section. Where an idea-friendly local economy is more resilient because It is interconnected. And this is the build connections part of the idea-friendly method. And we all know the stereotype that we all know everybody in our small towns, right? Like, you know everybody in everybody's business. But then, of course, that's not really true. And you find that out when you find surprising things that you didn't realize. But especially at a time of a lot of change like this, things are going on. So you might also be familiar with the research that shows that better connections are part of building the social capital that helps strengthen our communities. And one way you can build connections to help rebuild your local economy is by connecting your business people to each other, because they can support each other better than any outside experts. Now, this is a smart tactic, especially for helping businesses start selling online and start marketing on social media quickly, especially important in a time when we're not sure how people will do business next week. So you want to start by building connections. Pair up your merchants with local people who are already using online platforms and doing it very well. So for your handmade or vintage stores, you probably have an Etsy wizard who lives in your town right now, who is already selling stuff online, but maybe never even opened a bricks and mortar store. And then the same goes for Google My Business. You probably have people who are really good with that and do lots of updates. Or you have Amazon sellers or eBay sellers, or you have somebody on Shopify or Square or Gumroad. Pair them up with other local businesses so that they can teach. And that will help those businesses that are needing to generate more sales to actually do that, because they have local help to get them going. And then finally, let's talk about building financial connections, because building financial connections helps you to make your community more resilient using the money that's already in your community, and rather than depending on outside support like stimulus funds. You're going to find ways to connect and recirculate money in your local economy so that it can do more good in your community. So for short term, procurement is the new stimulus fund, right? Every purchase that you make is a choice, and it's a choice to support a specific business. And that applies to you personally, but it also applies to your organization and businesses and the government and everyone that is procuring anything, any product or any service that could be sourced from inside your community. Amazon doesn't need your help. Evaluate what you are buying and how you could get it locally, and leverage your social media contacts to get the word out that you're looking for certain things to purchase. In fact, right before this call, Nancy and I were talking about grant writing, that I have been asked to find somebody that knows how to do grant writing. So I'm trying to procure somebody close to me that can do that instead of making a recommendation for somebody that lives far away. So put the word out on your social networks, talk to people you know, and try to connect up businesses and organizations with people who could sell them stuff that they need. Now, get that conversation going, encourage everyone to do the same, because right now we have a really strong feeling of community, and people who are financially able to buy things right now are wanting to support local businesses, and they'll do that when we make it really easy and really obvious. So start the conversation. And then longer term, over the long term, the more that you have local entrepreneurs getting a chance to meet these local procurement needs, the better your local economy will be more resilient to any shocks that come to it in the future. And it will take time, but you can get this to work even in the largest of the local organizations, large businesses, large governments, and large anchor institutions. So some of them have a very formal low bid requirement, must accept the low bid. Well, local resilience expert Michael Schumann recommends that along with the price, in most cases, it is legal to factor in the benefit of any money that will be respent into the community, because money that's spent in the community again generates more local tax revenue, right? So that's a benefit back that lowers the cost of accepting that bid. And research shows that local firms are more likely to respend more money in the community because big businesses based elsewhere, they take the money elsewhere. So you can consider that when deciding which bid really is the lowest bid. So you may think that sounds like a really big project, but you can take this on. You can actually host local procurement discussions and tap those large anchor institutions, schools, hospitals, nursing homes, local governments. Bring together anyone who's already doing this and others who want to, and then keep it going. Connect local businesses with each other. Large businesses with big needs could still buy from local suppliers. Local food producers, they could be connected with your big food buyers. So procurement has been way too closed for way too long. And it's time to open it up more to the small and micro businesses in your community. We see more and more organizations that are tapping these standard Amazon contracts, and that hurts your economy. Getting your local businesses a chance to sell into the procurement streams helps keep money moving in your local community. Now, another financial way of building some connections is local investing. And we talked a little about the crowd investing before, but we have the opportunity to invest some actual investment dollars and redirect them from Wall Street to Main Street businesses. Now, this has been written about for a long time, but I think the time is finally here that people are realizing it is serious. And you may have read the book Loca Vesting by Amy Cortese. It's several years old, but the information is terrific. It includes specific ways that businesses can tap local investment from local people. There's some financial models in there like royalty financing that you might not thought of as a way to finance a business without getting a loan. And then there are things like creating regional stock exchanges, which I think is awesome, but seems like such a big project. Now, the other thing to think about is how many people in your community have IRAs or 401ks or 403bs or any kind of individual retirement account. I mean, have you thought about how much that adds up to in your community? And then just imagine for 1 second, what if we could move 1% of that money away from Wall Street mutual funds and stocks and into our Main Street businesses? How much of a difference would that make? Now, Michael Schumann, who's another author of things about local investment, and we mentioned him before, he also has a new book that is just out called Put Your Money Where Your Life Is. And he talks you through the process of making even a small part of an IRA of any kind self-directed, so that you can direct where you want to see that money invested. And that may even be in Main Street businesses. Now, links to purchase that book, Michael Schumann's book, those are going to be in the slide document that Nancy's going to post for download. There's a paperback and an audio book that you can buy from bookshop.org that actually sends money back to local bookstores, or you can get the ebook from the publisher. And if you happen to have a local bookstore, ask them to order it for you. Now, there are 2 more quick points on this before we stop for questions, which that's your heads up that we're going to stop for questions. So if you've got a question or a story or an example, throw it into the chat box. Or if you want to come onto the video and we'll have a conversation, that's great too. So the first one is local banks, because the simplest possible step anybody can take to invest in their local community is move your money to a locally owned bank or to a community owned bank if you have one. And it's also time to be supporting and finding out about all the local lending alternatives like credit unions and CDFIs and your utilities that have relending funds. Pay attention to all of those and see what you can do to support them. The second quick point is I want to talk a little bit about regionalism, because all of our neighboring communities are facing really similar challenges right now. So we have opportunities to cooperate. And I know that all of you belong to some kind of regional associations, regional groups, but start asking the question at those groups about how you can work together specifically on making your own local communities more resilient. And if you're not part of a regional organization, now is a really great time to be looking at what is available around you. So we're going to stop here for questions again. So if you have questions or comments or ideas, I would love to have them.
Okay, so the question that I think you might have asked some of it is, what is the name and name and author of the book that was mentioned? And Michael Schumann is on your slides. But you mentioned Loca Vesting?
Loca Vesting, yes, I did. That one is not actually in the slides. I can fix that before you post the slides. Okay.
Okay.
Loca Vesting by Amy Cortese. And I can just throw that in the chat box.
Okay, great.
Although it'll be, let me hit mute before I start typing. Okay, and you can tell me what the other question was.
No, I think that was it. The other question was just that somebody was jumping off for another meeting, but she was looking forward to the responses.
Okay, so, oh, if I hit enter, then the chat actually goes to everyone.
Here we go, local vesting.
So local vesting, yeah, and I will put that in the slides. And if I don't remember that, Nancy, you have to remind me that I need to do that.
Sure.
Okay, anybody else want to jump in with anything right quick before we move on? Oh, here we go.
Do you see Becky, Peggy?
Do you see?
I am part of a very small town. We do have a local grocery store. However, we have one business owner who has purchased all the buildings in downtown and is just using them for storage. Any suggestion?
I think Cindy would tell you that if you go back in the archive of these calls, there's a wonderful call that is filling empty buildings. And in it are a bunch of suggestions on how to get those storage hoarders to cut some slack for you and get even the front, like, and you start, this is the cheaters way to do it. You start by borrowing their windows. You say, can we put the posters on the outside of your window? And if you can't find another way to do it, like, you're like kids posters, right? Like kids art, we need to hang it on your windows. So they say yes to that. You wash the windows, then you borrow the inside, then you borrow the first 10 feet, then you get the whole building out from under them while they're not even looking. Cindy, did you want to say anything?
I was just going to say all these things I read, the first 10 feet, you know, and that's what I remembered, and finding out why, you know.
Yes.
And I've always thought the thing of like hosting an event in those buildings. Maybe they just clean up the first 10 feet so you can have a Halloween, go from store to store and let somebody who's a historian talk about the history of the building, you know, things like that you shared. Anyway, I'm just putting the plug that they should go watch that video because it's my favorite, the filling empty buildings.
Yes.
And that's my colleague, Deb Brown. So I'm going to get a shout out for Deb Brown who did that video. It's really awesome.
Another one, Peggy, that you need to watch is Deb did one on another one on filling. Now, actually, both of you have done one.
We both do one. Go check the archives because we talked about
it. Because they're both really good.
And then I'm going to make a plug for my business, if you can pardon me, but we sell a tool kit to help you run a tour of empty buildings. So when you can get that one guy to let you do a tour, then you can bring people in and they can see all the buildings that are there. And then maybe you can start talking about the possibilities of what else could happen there. I noticed that Lisa has unmuted her mic. I think she's got something for us.
Well, I'm Christy, and I'm from Roswell, I'm Lisa's friend. And when you were talking about having an event, having businesses together, we've talked about that too, but I've always thought of the storefront businesses and not the business that's in a garage and the man doing his own work or leathering or candles, whatever, and to bring all those people together for a business meeting rather than just thinking of the storefront business. So that opened my mind to another level of connectiveness that we need.
Excellent.
And Becky, I do a program called First Impressions. And when you talked about exactly that, getting the businesses together in one community, they told me and she held up her little handmade brochure that showed 37 businesses. And I said, I've been through your town. Where are these businesses? But it was services and all of those things. And you can't honor and support them if you don't put them out there in front of the public.
So true. So true. Treat them as real businesses, list them. I just recently got an email from a economic development group in Canada, and they were like, we've just published our comprehensive business directory, which does not include home-based businesses or temporary businesses. That's not comprehensive now, is it? No, it's not. Okay. All right. Christy, thank you very much for those points about reaching out to the guys in their garages and all those other businesses and making them part of building connections. So we're going to go on with our last little section here. And let me, if I move the chat box, then I don't stare at it while I'm talking. Okay. So we're going to talk about this last section. An idea-friendly local economy is more resilient because it supports lots of small steps rather than making a few big high-risk bets on just a few businesses. So this is the take small steps portion of the idea-friendly method. None of us knows all the answers. We don't all know what businesses are going to be the ones that will survive. We just don't know. And we'll have to support a lot of little tries and many tiny experiments in order to learn which ones are working the best. So right now you can encourage experiments that help your businesses to help the community, and experiments that help customers to also help the community right now. We're tapping into that whole sense we have right now of kind of coming together, that we're all in this together. So businesses can help customers that are in tough financial shape by offering more flexible payments, and maybe even some smaller or lower cost items, like change the product mix of what you're offering. So can you introduce some more budget friendly options? I do not recommend that anybody go into the discounting businesses, right? You don't need to discount your products and services. If you need to offer lower prices that way, what you can offer are loyalty rewards. These make a lot more sense. It's like the discount, except it comes after you've made a certain number of purchases, instead of that instant discount on every single purchase. Save those discounts up and make it into a loyalty reward to encourage people to come back to your business. Now, a second idea to help customers through the tough times is to offer some free small items if you can. There's a regional bakery in the Pacific Northwest that started offering small bags of fresh bread baked daily, and to anyone that was in need. And see, they're already making bread every day, and to make little loaves that they could put into these small bags didn't cost the bakery that much more, but was something that they could provide back to the community. And then I also heard about Sassy Cow Creamery in Columbus, Wisconsin. They're actually keeping a refrigerator outside their store, and they're keeping it fully stocked with milk and other dairy products. And it's called the Kindness Cooler, and anyone can stop by and pick up milk, and they plan to keep it fully stocked throughout the pandemic, and I'm sure throughout the economic recovery that we know will take a while. So what could you create like that, maybe at a very small cost to you? And then you can help your customers to help the community by doing some kind of a buy one, give one thing, or any kind of other beneficial option for people who can spend right now. So you've heard of, big national brands, you buy one pair of socks, they donate a pair of socks. Well, is there something you could create like that for your community? You can also just facilitate your customers paying for another customer, like a pay it forward sort of thing. You've seen coffee shops that allow a customer to pay for an item for somebody else, and then you write it on a little slip and they hang it on the wall or something for somebody else to redeem when they need it. So there's one store around here calls them blessings, and they have a blessing wall. Well, how could you adapt that in your business where somebody could pay a little bit more towards another customer that maybe is in rough financial shape? We can also create sharing stations. This is something all of us could do. Any kind of canned goods, or that you can donate, any kind of items that you can donate them then to a local charity, or you can operate it like a little free library where you've got like a little sharing station. And I've actually seen people that have converted their little free libraries into sharing canned goods and other things that people might need really badly right now. So going back to, all of these things we've talked about giving to your community, don't forget to talk about it. Don't forget to mention how you're giving back, whether you're doing buy one, give one, or a little free stuff exchange or something else. Tell people about it. Put it in that new community-wide email that you're starting, right? And because we know Amazon's not doing anything for your town, but you and your local businesses are the ones that do something for your people. So talk about it. And these small steps really build feelings of pride and community. And again, you're building your social capital. Now, I mentioned the innovative rural business models before about how those pull down the barriers to entry so more people can create tiny businesses and business experiments. So we're going to look at the ways that this can help your economy in the short and long term. Now, short term, we know there are some small businesses that are in trouble. So we want to help them to maybe downsize so they don't have to close entirely. So think about how you can help a business combine and share a space with another business. Now, in my nearby big town, Alva, Oklahoma, there is a makeup and gift shop. And in the back, they have a beauty salon like booth that nobody's using. And so if that boutique needed help with their business, or if we knew of somebody that was a hair cutter or a beautician that they needed to downsize into a smaller space in order to keep going, we could bring them together. But to do that, then you have to know what little hidden spaces are there in your community. who has an office that's not being used because the senior partner retired, or who has a little space to one side, or who doesn't use their front windows. And can we help somebody else downsize into that and support both businesses? So you can kind of play matchmaker, resource connection there. Now, for businesses in your community that are in serious trouble, it may be better to help them close down rather than piling on additional debt and barely surviving another month. Sometimes it's better to just help them close without hurting their family finances any worse than they need to, or damaging the community any more than they need to. So if you do find yourself helping a business that's trying to close, then think about what good could come from this? What good could come from closing this business? Are there some assets in the business that could be captured and recycled? Do they have their customer list? Is that something that we could bring into that community-wide email list and try to keep those people shopping local? Are there some skills that that entrepreneur has? Is there some place we could put them to good use in the community right now? And then longer term, I would love for all of you to create more shared spaces. If you have followed Deb and me at Savior.town, then you have heard us talk about shared spaces. That is where you take any building and you divide it up and you put a lot of businesses together in there. So you've seen antique malls like this, or you can have seen artists where there's artist co-op where they have multiple artists in a building. But each building, each business benefits from not having to maintain the whole building themselves. So they've got smaller space to maintain. They get shared advertising and promotion. There's that critical mass of being together. And they interact with each other and they learn from other people in the shared space. But it doesn't have to be just art and antiques. Like Christy mentioned, this could be more industrial. It can be like the shared garages and shop spaces. So you could take a big industrial building and divide it up, and those guys doing their garage businesses would have a better place to work out of and could maybe grow. It could be more agricultural, and you could have shared food processing or shared kitchen spaces. And of course, shared offices and co-working, right? So you can make a shared space out of any existing building that has any extra space, or any business that has a little unused space, especially if they need to scale back maybe because they just don't have the business right now. And it's all about bringing those tiny businesses together. And these are the job incubators of the future. So that wraps up everything that we're going to present. And so this is another great time for questions. And let me pull up the chat box and see if you guys have been real quiet.
Yes, but I would tell you, Becky, what you're saying even about garages and learning from each other. You know, at K-State, when they build a new engineering building, they made the shared the space big enough so that all of the kinds of different organizations that they benefited from different engineering groups working together. You know, whether it was the car group or there's just things to be learned and innovations to be made. But if only you knew that. Why do people go to the Mayo Clinic? Because they're doing it in a comprehensive way, not just looking at your broken arm.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. The Mayo Clinic theory right there. The Mayo Clinic theory of shared buildings.
Yeah.
But it's, I really would love to see more of this done with little like workshop spaces. And then an idea that just came to me about a week ago when I was touring. I'm working with my local economic developer here in Woods County, and we've toured all the little regional towns. And we were in one of them, and it's a town that does a lot of festivals and fairs and events. And so they'll have huge crowds of people in town. And so most of the vendors that sell there and make all the money are from out of town. I said, you have this empty building. So why not the week before or the month before the event, rent little sections of it to local people so that they can make their stuff and have a place to store it, so that when the event happens, they're like ready to go. And they could actually do that because so many of us either don't have a garage, or the garage is full of stuff, or we've been kicked out of the house. We were a kitchen table business, but somebody reclaimed the kitchen table from us. We just need some space to make our jewelry, or to do our silversmithing, or to do our, our horseshoe art, or, whatever it is that we make and do. We just don't have enough space to do it on a big scale from our house. But we have all these buildings sitting empty. So we want to bring those two things together, especially when we know there'll be a special event where they can immediately sell and market that stuff. So you rent them for a month, a small space to work out of, and to store their stuff in advance of selling at the event.
Fantastic. Well,
there's great. Oh, Lisa's got a thought.
okay, good.
We were just discussing with the Christmas holiday coming up, maybe do it like in November for people to make the stuff to sell for December for their craft fairs, their boutique.
Check your calendar. When is the big holiday fair going to be in your town? Backdate by a month and try to, and then you go to that guy that's hoarding stuff and go, can we borrow 10 feet of the back of your building to make stuff in, or here's this building that the city owns. Can we borrow it for a month? And just, look around, because there's all kinds of empty buildings all over small towns. It's not hard to find an empty building in a small town.
No, it's
not. Because it's just for a month, we don't need the best building in the world. It doesn't have to be super awesome and in great shape and like, okay, so the roof leaks over there. Okay, so we won't put anybody over there. Like, we'll be all over here. So it's just a temporary use. So maybe we can get away with some things.
Mm-hmm. Heat doesn't work good. We'll just put on our hoodies. We'll
just warm, dress in layers, because there's no heat. Right? I get it. And hope for good weather.
Exactly. Great.
All right. Cindy's got a thought.
Yeah, I do have a question regarding that. Is there any, though, like a protocol? You think about these buildings that sit empty for a long time and you wonder how good's the electricity? Or what if the building burns down while all of my stuff is inside of it? Right. Is there any guidance of how to broach that conversation or buy insurance for a month when you're in somebody else's building? Or what about those kinds of issues? Good questions, because you do want a building that's safe, right? Like, if the roof leaks, if the roof's going to fall in, then don't use it, right? But if it's just like drippy, then get some buckets. But I think that it wouldn't hurt if you are concerned about that building and you're not sure that's the one, but that's the only one you can get. Then see if you can get a professional in the construction or engineering trades to do a walkthrough and check on it. And to see if they see anything obvious that you need to know. The other thing you can do is looking at local organizations. A lot of times, like the chamber has event insurance. And so if they can add on this crafting event to their insurance. So try to find somebody that's got an existing policy that you can add this to for less cost than you would if you had to buy a whole separate policy. So try to find somebody to piggyback on, and then find a sponsor to cover the insurance cost. But you can always have a professional walk through that building and say, yeah, I think this is good to go for a month, or no, I really wouldn't let my dog in here. So I think that that's a good approach to take to it. I know that when Deb did the tour of empty buildings in Webster City, Iowa, they walked through with an engineer, the city manager, and somebody else. And they walked through these buildings, and the engineer's going, okay, this is a problem here, and this building would actually be usable for these purposes. And they were looking long-term, but I mean, you can just do that and say, all right, we're only going to be in here for a month. This is all we need to do. And what temporary adjustments can we make that will provide better safety? Can we, line with plastic, or can we, what kind of temporary things can we bodge together that will work? Do you think, do the building owners do the building owners have any anxiety over that, for fear that the city manager or the engineer will walk through and find things that they have to change? Or is that not very likely, since it's not open as a business, that maybe it doesn't have to be up to code? I don't know. And I don't know enough about the Kansas laws around that in particular. I know that in Ontario, in Canada, the laws are really strict, and they tried to do a tour of empty buildings, but the city was running it, and they were terrified that the city would come and inspect their buildings because the rules are very strict there, and they were afraid. And so they only had like 2 buildings on the tour. But in other places, it's a lot more flexible. And I'm going to say Kansas is a little like Oklahoma in that the smaller your town, the more you can get away with. And so, you may not want to involve the city on it. Maybe you want to look for a county building that's outside the city limits that you could use for this, like somebody's barn, or so there's all kinds of way to get away from that. And then the less official, the less formal it is, the more likely building owners are to say yes. If it's just
the chamber's walking through, or, you know, extension's going to come and walk through, or, you know, something that doesn't seem as scary as having the city walk through. And I think it helped in Deb's case. They had their city manager had been there for a long time. He had a really solid reputation in the community as not being that hard-headed guy that you can't get along with. He had a good reputation of working with people. So, you know, you're going to play it by ear based on who the people are in your town.
Thank you.
Deb did I'm looking at the website where we have them archived, and it's maybe 9 or 10 down, and it's called Filling Empty Buildings, but it really has a whole lot to do with that tour of empty buildings. And I think she said she filled 15 buildings in her.
There were oh man, I thought I had the right number, and then I just lost it. There were 15 when she drove into town to take her job. I think they got 13 on the tour and filled 12 in a year. In 1 year, they filled 12 empty buildings. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to wrap up right here, and then you guys can do your community sharing stuff. Okay.
Okay. Well, and I'm hoping that somebody will have something to share with us about what's going on in their world. And Debbie, thank you so much.
All right, so just to wrap up, I want to just go back over the main points. I know that you've learned today that you can best build a more resilient local economy by being idea friendly. And it is an idea friendly local economy is more resilient 3 ways. It supports participation in business by many people and not just a few. It's interconnected. And it is more resilient because lots of small steps rather than making those few high risk, big bets. So for the next steps to help you implement these ideas, you can not only watch the past archived videos here, but we have our videos for sale in a membership that we offer at savior.town that has access to all of our videos, including things like finding more volunteers and dealing with negativity. So you can also get our free newsletters. Deb and I each write a newsletter, and those will help you keep your enthusiasm up, and you can always hit reply and just bounce ideas off of us. And we're running a promotion in August. If you become a member, then we are giving you our three crisis recovery videos to keep, and that includes our version of rebuilding your local economy that is part of what you've heard here, but it also includes refilling your business pipeline and restarting local shopping, which you can use not just now, but anytime you're going to do a local shopping promotion. And I want to thank you all very much for the work that you do in your communities. You are making Kansas a better place, and I really appreciate your work. And I appreciate you being here and sharing your ideas with us today. Thank you so much, and I will see you again the next time. And Nancy, that is it for me, and you can go on with your community sharing.
Very good. Thank you so much, Becky. So we're going to open it up to see what you might be doing in your local community that others can be inspired by and get an idea for. While you're thinking, I shared while Becky and I were getting ready this morning that like all of you, we've kind of quit our grant writing workshops, but they're starting again, and of those people who have attended those in-person workshops, our writers have written $11 million, more than $11 million of successful grants. And so the start small thing is really about the fact that, you know, you can do this. There are people who have the passion. It's people like you. It's not professional writers. People like you can implement their dreams. And so I am working on making it an online version so that we can teach remotely as well. And that is an ongoing effort that I hope to implement this fall.
I'm going to share that I'm going to have to get off. Hey, we are doing a digital boost camp here in Shawnee County. It's with our entrepreneurial community. Some of the funds from Network Kansas that we'd used for the last 2 years have been to send business owners out to John Shaler's Destination Boot Camp. And of course, that is all about bringing them to you, being a destination with your retail business. But in response to COVID, it's pretty clear that businesses that were ready to move towards a lot more e-commerce are doing better than those who relied on you to come into the store. And so we have very thoughtfully created a plan and worked with a local group called Sprout Creative. They value the service that they're going to provide at about $2,500, and because everybody likes to work with Network Kansas, they are giving us a little bit of a break on that. So we're doing a cost share with a business owner. We're asking for them to put in $500, and we're paying about the other $1,250 to $2,000 of that. There'll be a 6-month program of them learning how to assess their business, where it is. When people get to their website, what happens next? Do they look? Does it turn into a sale? What items are they selling the most of? And sometimes businesses have no idea what's really working there very well. So trying to get them to learn how to assess that, measure it. We've put in a lot of components because we want to be able to measure, you know, what is success? So we have to know where they are now, and they need to know where they are now. And then to know when they implement something, did that make the difference, or do I need to try something else? And so it's a 6-month mentorship and teaching opportunity. And we'll start with at least 4 businesses. And then if we think it's successful, we're going to call that a pilot. Then we may expand that.
That's exciting. It is really exciting. Well, unless somebody jumps out and tries to share, we're closing in on 10:30. So I'm going to tell you that our next speaker, I believe it's September 4th, but it's the first Friday of September, will be Becky's co-leader with co-founder of Savior.town, Deb Brown. And Deb is going to talk about, that's right, grow your own entrepreneurs, making entrepreneurship self-sustaining. And I always like to close with a little thought for the day. And our thought for the day today is by Joseph Campbell. We must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us. So go and create a great day wherever you are. And thanks for joining us.